Why, Mr. Bennett. Yeah, I saved all your mail for you.
Thanks. I'll pick it up on my way out. Hello, Dale. Here you're going to be around here for a while. You better check your sources.
Hello, Mr. Bennett. You can go right in. Mr. Craig's expecting you.
Thanks. Well, Dale, glad to see you. Have a good vacation?
Wonderful.
Fine, fine. Sit down. Here, have a cigar.
No, thanks.
Well, now, the last time I saw you, you were a pretty angry guy.
I sure was. I was ready to quit.
That's what I thought.
How would you feel if you were me? I'd worked hard enough to get into that Paris office, and I'd worked hard to get good news sources in Europe. I was all set. Then you pull me back here.
For your own good. Because you'd forgotten to be a reporter. You were writing editorials, not news stories. We want to know what other people think. That's why I told you to take a vacation. You needed to get back to the grassroots. Get a little closer to people. What have you got there?
This is my vacation, in pictures. That's really what I want to talk to you about. I want you to have first crack at it.
Shoot.
Okay. You told me to take a vacation and think it over. When I left here, I just threw some camping gear into a station wagon and took off for nowhere. A few miles out of the city, I got an idea. There was Lake Michigan, looking cool and inviting. I thought, why not? And man, that old lake felt good. I was a new man when I came out. Got to watching a beach car scooting along. And then I stumbled right into something really attractive.
Well, hello.
Let go of me. Why don't you look where you're going?
Gee, I'm sorry.
Clumsy. Look what you've done. It was almost finished.
Oh, well, here, let me help you.
Don't touch it. Haven't you any sense at all? Just go away, please.
You know, you're mighty pretty when you're mad. She was plenty mad. I tried to think of some way to make things right, but no luck. Oh, well. As I drove north, I couldn't get that gal out of my mind. Then at a town along the way, I stopped to get some gas and maybe learn something about the local scenic spots. A funny thing happened. I guess I had luck on my side, because right there was the same painting of the lake and the dunes. Where'd you get that?
I just bought it. You think it's any good?
Yeah.
I kind of liked it. Maybe I just like the gal who painted it. Gee, she was pretty.
Say, how about selling that to me?
It's more than I paid for it. Okay, it's all yours. Do you know her?
No, but I'd like to.
Kind of interesting. Driving around with her father in an old car and trailer. They just left here about a half hour ago.
Which way they go?
Going north.
Thanks. So am I. So I started to keep an eye out for a car with a trailer. And a few miles up the road, there they were. Obviously in some kind of trouble. I stopped. But of course I would have stopped anyway. Because there was the same gal up on a nearby hillside.
Hello, young fella. Want to buy a painting?
No, thanks.
Game of cribbage?
No.
A lot of people play cribbage, end up buying a painting. Whole back end's full of them. Know anything about engines?
Some. That seems to be the trouble.
Have a look. If it isn't one thing, it's another. Engines, brakes. Here, I'll show you. Doggone battery.
Better let me give you a push.
Hope you would. Just wanted to say thank you.
Not at all. But I'd do something about that car of yours if I were you. I don't think it's safe.
She's all we had. Have to make her last.
Well. Hey, look! It's moving! I never felt so sorry for any two people in my life. Her name was Connie. Her father was retired on a little pension, and she managed to sell enough paintings to just keep going. And then the whole thing went up in smoke.
What did you do?
I had a car. Wasn't going anywhere. What could I do? So I hooked my station wagon to their trailer, and we drove off together. And frankly, I wasn't at all sorry to do it. My vacation was turning out a lot better than I'd expected. What Connie felt, she kept to herself. And her dad? Well, it was hard to tell what he thought, too. We headed for Interlaken, pulled into a pretty grove of pines, and made ourselves comfortable. Then I heard music. Hundreds of youngsters come to Interlaken every summer. Come from all over the country to play, sing, dance, and study. It's a wonderful spot.
Well, I think I'll see if I can turn up a game of cribbage.
Anything I can do?
No, thanks. You know, it's awfully nice of you to pull us around, but I don't feel right about it.
It's about time I got around to seeing the Middle West anyway.
I just love it. For years, I've wanted to travel around and paint these beautiful scenes. Ted thinks I'm a little foolish.
Ted? Who's he?
Ted Newell. We've known each other since kindergarten. He thinks I ought to give it up.
Mm-hmm. Get married? Settle down?
I'm not ready to give up yet. Maybe he's right. My paintings don't sell very well.
Oh, don't let that bother you, baby. Well, think of all the great painters that had to die before their stuff began to sell. Take Cézanne, Gauguin, Van Gogh.
Sometimes I think 2 years in Paris can make people awfully patronizing.
Uh-oh. The things there are to see in this Middle West. Spring Mill State Park in Indiana takes you back. There's an old water wheel there, still running just as it did when our forefathers built it more than 100 years ago. Everybody seemed to be in a holiday mood. We drove over to New Salem in Illinois, where Abraham Lincoln lived as a young man. The old log buildings have been carefully restored as a monument to his memory.
I don't know about you, but a place like this makes me feel a shadow of history.
Yeah, I get a whale of a kick out of places like this. You bet. A mighty big chunk of history got started right here. From rail splitter to president. But life must have been pretty rough in those days. How'd you like to travel around behind a pair of oxen?
We swung west to the Mississippi and turned north. We were looking at some barges and a river tug when Dad summed it up.
Once upon a time, these rivers were our only highways. Today, we have highways all over the country. We drive our own cars. We get on a train, a plane, go from one end of the country to another. And nobody says we can't.
Farther up the river, we crossed the bridge that leads into Hannibal, Missouri, Mark Twain's hometown. The whole world has come to know and love it through his books. You can still see settings that come to life in his books, like Mark Twain's home and Tom Sawyer's famous white fence. Not far away is a statue to Tom and his friend Huck Finn, the first statue ever put up in America to people out of a book. From there, we rolled across Missouri to Kansas City, where we saw one of the most beautiful war memorials in this country. From there, you get a fine view of the city itself. Talk about handsome buildings. You ought to see the state capitol at Lincoln, right in the corn belt of Nebraska. And then Kansas. We stopped in Dodge City to see famous old Boot Hill. They really died with their boots on in those days. Nearby is a monument to the frontier days, a couple of longhorns, which reminded us how much progress we've made in beef cattle. Oklahoma City's something entirely different. You just look around and you can see oil derricks right up on the lawn of the state capitol. The first we saw of the Rocky Mountains was the summit of Pikes Peak, way off in the distance.
You don't realize how big this country is till you get around and see it.
Then we left the plains and began climbing up into Rocky Mountain National Park. There are plenty of mountains, all right. You keep climbing higher and higher. For miles on Trail Ridge Road, you can actually see the timber line below you. You're riding right on the top of the world. Then we got into the Grand Teton country of Wyoming. That scenery is so doggone beautiful, we just had to stop for a few days and soak it up. By this time, I knew I was serious about Connie. She was friendly enough, but most of the time she kept busy with her painting. Will you tell me something?
Sure.
What's the matter with me?
I don't lose anything, yes, son. You got your heart set on getting over the other side of the ocean and covering the big stories, and of course you're thinking about Connie.
I've been thinking a lot about Connie. What kind of a guy is this Ted Newell?
Oh, Ted's all right. Kind of opinionated about some things, but he's solid.
I see. Does Connie...
Oh, I'm not taking any sides in this thing.
Connie and I kept right on talking about the scenery. The falls on the Yellowstone River. And they are pretty spectacular. Lots of color and action out there. And right on schedule, Old Faithful blew her top. I got to looking at the people, and especially at their cars. Dad said,
There's many as 70 million of us jump in our cars in the summer and and just go places.
Then we took a big swing through Montana. They say out here youngsters learn to walk almost as soon as they can ride. This is real vacation country. We got into the lowlands of Montana in time for the wheat harvest. Another thing I'd always wanted to see was the Mount Rushmore Memorial in South Dakota. There they are. Washington, Jefferson, Teddy Roosevelt, and Abe Lincoln. So big they had to sculpt them out with dynamite. Old Mother Nature did some sculpting of her own in South Dakota's Badlands. But you know, they have a kind of eerie beauty all their own. And talk about contrasts. In North Dakota, we ran into the wheat harvests again. From there, we drove over to Itasca Park in Minnesota, where the trees grow green and tall. And every breeze makes its own kind of poetry in the treetops. That's where the Mississippi begins. There, it's so narrow you can walk across. Then there's the Great Mesabi Range, where so much of our iron ore has come from. It's like a giant's playground. Way down there, the big equipment, the trucks, and the men look like so many toys for children. Duluth on Lake Superior is one of the leading freight ports of the world. Most of us don't realize how much traffic they handle. As you drive down from Minnesota into Wisconsin, you're in another perfect vacation land. A land of trees and lakes. It was beside one of those Wisconsin lakes that I finally made up my mind to speak to Connie.
Hi, Dale. I was just fixing my hair. Isn't that view something?
Yes, it is. But I'd rather look at you. You're beautiful, Connie. You know, all the way from Michigan, I've been wondering just what I was doing.
Dale, you've been wonderful. Both Dad and I appreciate it.
Connie. How'd you like to spend a honeymoon in Paris?
Dale.
Paris in the spring is pretty wonderful. Will you marry me, Connie?
Dale, marriage is a lot more than Paris in the spring.
All right, then. Summer, fall, winter.
That's just it. You and I are 1,000 miles apart.
Oh, don't say no, Connie. Won't you at least think about it? Anyway, she didn't say no. Then we drove down along the Wolf River, headed for the Wisconsin Dells. Years ago, lumbermen used to float their logs downstream through here on the way to the sawmills. We saw the sights of the Dells. Stand Rock. The weird rock formations. Of course, Wisconsin isn't all lakes and gorges and forests. They have some of the richest dairy land in the country. Fine, big herds. I was enjoying it so much, I hated to see the trip end. I tried to stretch it out as long as I could. For instance, we drove back west a ways to take in the Iowa State Fair. You know, I'd never been to a fair like that before, and I'd missed something. Dad took off to the trotting races. Connie and I, well, we just had fun. For a day, I forgot all about Paris and my job there. And I hoped Connie was forgetting about her Ted Newell. Having fun is part of a state fair, but there's another side. All over the country, people get together at fairs like this to compare livestock and to exchange new ideas about farming. Well, it was quite a vacation. But like all good things, it finally came to an end. Connie and her father lived in a pleasant, small town with a town square and a bandstand. They had a comfortable white house on a shaded street. And it was on their front porch that I finally met Ted Newell.
So you're Dale Bennett. I've had so many letters from Constance about you, I feel as if I knew you. Mighty nice of you to pull them around.
It was nice for...
And I wanted Constance to try out this notion of hers. You know, painting things, trying to sell them. A lot of fun, but no way to live.
Well, now,
Frankly, I hope she has it out of her system. I want her to keep on painting, of course, you know, as a hobby. But we have other plans, which seem to me to be, well, just a little bit more important. Well, I've got to run. See you later.
You know...
No, don't say it. The paintings haven't sold too well. But some people like them. And a friend of Ted's has promised me an art gallery show.
Hey, wait a minute. I've got a better idea. Will you let me pick out a few of them and take them with me?
Why, yes. But why?
I'd like to try something. I'll let you know what happens.
Dale, thanks for everything. And good luck in Paris. I wish you could be around here for a while.
So do I. But...
I can't explain what I'm trying to say very well, but if you could be here next Saturday afternoon, for instance, for the band concert.
Well, that's the story. I think her paintings are too good to be looked at by a few people. I think she has something to say about places and people that millions ought to see and think about. It's something that millions of people feel right here, even though they may not say much about it. It's the same thing that Ernie Pyle saw when he traveled around. The grassroots, the real heart and hope of America. Maybe of the whole world. Let me show you.
Go ahead.
Why, look. You can see it right in the face of this boy with his prize-winning cat. It's as big as our whole country. But it's alive in this scene of a sheep herder, off all by himself, alone. But a part, and a mighty important part, of the way we work together. It's right there in the face of this roustabout in a new oil field. It's in the faces of all these people. But it starts right close to the earth. Look at this small town. Then add our farms, our cities, and our industry. And you discover the real secret of America right here in the Middle West. Don't you see what I mean? Think about printing one of these pictures every Sunday. Let millions of newspaper readers see them and maybe understand this country a little better.
I like them. Better yet, I like what you say about them. You give me an article in each painting, Dale, the way you're talking now, and it's a deal. Then we can talk about when you go back to Paris.
Back to Paris.
Take this new point of view back with you. Give me this kind of story about the people over there, the places over there. Warm human stuff. Give me the same thing from Europe.
But it isn't the same.
People are people around the world.
Yes, but what I'm talking about, what I've seen in the faces of these people, what's in their lives, their hearts, their hopes, their opportunities, that's something alive right here in the Middle West. Why, I just suddenly realized that this is the only place in this world today where I can find the things I want to talk about. This is a wonderful place for a vacation, sure. But more than that, this is where I want to put my roots down, to work and live. I've just talked myself out of the Paris job, haven't I?
What's the matter with you? You've been fighting to get back to the Paris office. Okay, the job's yours. Take it.
No, sir. I got a better idea. I've got a date.
A date?
Yeah. A date with a bandstand.